So something I've been asked often is, do we mix in our project file in the music production stage, or do we mix in a dedicated mix template using bounced audio stems? The line can be blurry, and there are pros and cons to each, and where does one start and one finish? So let's have a quick look at both of those options, and I'll tell you what I favour and why. So the first of our two workflow options is actually mixing in the project file that we produced the song in the music production stage. So what are the pros of this? Well, really, it's just that you've got lots of control. So if you're mixing the song but you realise a drum intro isn't working as well as it could, for example, or you just want to change the sound completely, then you can do that very easily because you're in the project file. But this is a double-edged blade. So the con of it is that this can be distracting. So when you're mixing with a dedicated mix template using audio stems, you don't really have the option to go back and change sounds, or not without quite a bit of effort anyway, so it forces you to commit. So yeah, a con is that it can be distracting to mix in your project file. 2 is that not having a dedicated mix template can mean that the mixing process takes longer and you can make mistakes because you might miss something out that your template would include. And 3, it simply uses more CPU power. So if you've got all of your sound production plugins running, like your soft synths and effects units, and then start adding your mixing plugins on top of that, it can be quite a strain for computers, especially if you've got a lot going on in the song. So our second option is, of course, mixing in a dedicated mix template or a mix project file. So what are the pros of this? Well, 1, as a dedicated mix template, everything's set up in a way that you know is going to work, so it's much quicker to work. 2, you've got clarity, you're starting with a clean slate, so you're not distracted by these little decisions that you could be tempted to go and change in the music production stage. And it also allows us to look at the project from a different perspective. 3 is that you can micro edit each audio stem if required. For instance, if you want a little bit more impact before a drop, with an audio stem you can very simply snip out a bit of each stem and create a microsecond of silence to make that drop hit even harder. Whereas it's much harder and fiddlier to do that in the production file because you're having to muck around with volume automation on loads of different tracks, and it can get confusing. And the last pro is, of course, it's much easier on the CPU. So what are the cons of mixing in a dedicated template? Well, really it's about time. So it takes time to export all of the stems from your project file and then re-import them into your mixing template. And if you do eventually decide you need to change something in the music production project, you have to go through all that process of exporting those stems and then re-importing them again. Now, I use both of these techniques still, but I have to say unequivocally that the best mixes I've ever created, and the ones that have been deemed the best and got the best reaction, have been the ones where I've had a dedicated mix template. So that is what I'm recommending to you in this course. So with that in mind, let's look at how to export the audio from our music production project to get the very best audio stems for our mixing template. I'll see you in the next lesson.